Stop for a moment and think about how much of your life is spent justifying yourself. How many times have you explained your choices, defended your actions, or tried to convince someone to understand you? Now ask yourself, what have you really gained from it? Nothing. Every word you've wasted on explanation is energy stolen from your growth, your power, your peace. Tonight, I'm going to show you why the moment you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving away your power, you stop surrendering your energy, and you start living life on your terms, unapologetically, decisively, and fully free. Your life is not a courtroom. Yet, so often, we live as if it is. Every action we take, every choice we make, we feel compelled to justify to someone else, as though the weight of our decisions needs validation from others. We speak, we explain, we defend, and in the process, we chip away at our own confidence. We hand over pieces of our authority, our autonomy, and our self-respect to those who are often not even worthy of our attention. The truth is, no one needs to hear your explanation to respect your choice, and no one can define your reality unless you allow them to. When you constantly justify yourself, you are essentially saying, I need your permission to exist the way I am. That statement, whether spoken or implied, is the silent erosion of your personal power. Every time you pause to rationalize your decisions, you are giving a part of your energy to validation instead of creation, to opinion instead of action. You are living in a world dictated by other people's expectations rather than guided by your own inner compass. Think about it. How often do we try to explain our choices to people who will never understand? People filter everything through their own fears, biases, and limitations. You can give them every detail, every reasoning behind your actions, and it will still not be enough. Their understanding is never the issue, their acceptance is never guaranteed, and yet we feel obligated to offer it. Why? Because we have been conditioned to believe that if we explain ourselves thoroughly, if we justify every decision, if we anticipate every objection, then we will be safe from criticism, from judgment, from confrontation. But life does not work that way. Explanations rarely change perception. They rarely alter someone's predetermined narrative about you. People who respect you will respect your decisions without needing a breakdown of your reasoning. People who do not respect you will find fault, no matter how much you explain. To spend your life defending yourself to both groups is an exercise in futility, a slow siphoning of energy that should be reserved for building your life, not appeasing the opinions of others. The moment you recognize that your life is not a courtroom, you begin to reclaim the power you have been giving away. Your choices become yours again, untainted by the weight of judgment. You start to realize that accountability is different from justification. Being accountable means taking responsibility for your actions, learning from your mistakes, and growing. Explaining yourself, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. It is the need to be understood, the desperate hope that others will approve, the silent cry that says, see, I am right. See, I am reasonable. See, I am worthy. But worthiness does not come from explanation. Worthiness comes from alignment with your own values, from courage to act in accordance with your truth, and from the discipline to honor yourself above the need for validation. Consider the energy you expend on explanations. Every time you prepare a justification, you are essentially rehearsing arguments in your mind, projecting possible criticisms, and tailoring your narrative to appease different audiences. This mental load is exhausting. It keeps you in a constant state of tension, a state where you are reactive rather than proactive. It prevents you from fully investing your energy into meaningful action, creativity, or personal growth. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving your mental space away. You stop carrying the invisible weight of other people's opinions. You start redirecting your focus and energy back into your own life, your own goals, and your own happiness. Moreover, explanations often come across as attempts to convince, persuade, or justify, which inherently weakens your position. When you try too hard to make someone understand, you imply that your position is negotiable, that it is subject to scrutiny, that it requires validation. Confidence, on the other hand, is silent. Confidence does not argue, it exists. When you make your choices and act on them without explanation, you send a clear signal. This is my life, and I am in command of it. That silence carries far more weight than pages of justification. People respect decisiveness and authenticity far more than elaborate reasoning. Another truth is that explanations often blur the line between communication and self-flagellation. You over-explain, you justify, you rationalize, and in doing so, you open yourself to scrutiny, criticism, and judgment that you could have avoided. You give others ammunition to question your character, your intentions, your integrity, and your intelligence. The irony is that most of the time, they were not questioning you in the first place. By explaining yourself unnecessarily, you create the conflict that never existed. Life becomes unnecessarily complicated because we cannot sit in our truth and allow it to exist without commentary. There is also a deeper psychological toll. Constantly explaining yourself fosters self-doubt. It convinces you that your choices are inherently questionable, that your instincts are unreliable, and that your sense of self requires external validation. This is the trap. You begin to define your worth by how well others understand you rather than by how true you remain to yourself. This is why people who over-explain are often exhausted, frustrated, and perpetually anxious. They are carrying the opinions of others as though those opinions were their own. They are living in a courtroom, under trial, with no jury ever asked for their verdict. Freedom comes the moment you decide your life is not a courtroom. You stop defending yourself. You stop justifying your choices. You stop explaining your every action and decision. You reclaim your time, your energy, and your mental clarity. You create boundaries that protect your inner life from constant scrutiny. You learn that you owe explanations only to yourself, and accountability is measured by personal growth, not public perception. When you embrace this, you discover a profound sense of liberation. Decisions become easier, actions become bolder, and confidence grows exponentially. You no longer seek permission, you act in accordance with your own principles. You no longer fear judgment, you focus on purpose. You no longer overthink, you execute. And here's the most important realization: explaining yourself does not teach others to understand you. It only teaches you to diminish yourself. It teaches you that your existence needs defense, that your choices require rationalization, and that your voice must be softened to appease others. The truth is, your life, your time, and your energy are too valuable to be spent in defense of decisions that are right for you. Every moment spent justifying, rationalizing, or defending is a moment stolen from creation, growth, joy, and self-mastery. The most successful, fulfilled, and respected people do not explain themselves. They act, they decide, they move forward. Their lives are full because their energy is invested in building, not defending. Their confidence is unshakable because it is rooted in self-trust, not external approval. Stop imagining that your explanations will convince the skeptics, change the critics, or earn the approval of the indifferent. Stop living in anticipation of judgment and instead live in alignment with your values and principles. Stop rehearsing defenses that no one asked for and start cultivating a life that speaks for itself. The more you explain, the more you dilute your presence, your authority, and your clarity. The less you explain, the more you own, the more you embody, and the more your life communicates your truth without a single word. When you stop defending yourself, something remarkable happens. People begin to respect your boundaries. They begin to see the quiet power in your decisiveness. They begin to recognize that you are guided by principles, not by opinion, and that your life is your responsibility, not a project to be edited by others. You stop reacting to judgments, criticism, and misunderstanding. You stop asking for permission, and instead, you take command. You stop living as though you are on trial, and instead start living as though you are the judge, the jury, and the executor of your own destiny. People will judge you no matter what. And this is a truth many of us resist accepting because it feels unfair, uncomfortable, and at times even cruel. We operate under the illusion that if we explain ourselves enough, if we show our intentions clearly, if we highlight our reasoning and logic, then people will see us the way we want to be seen. But life does not work this way. People filter reality through their own fears, insecurities, biases, and experiences. Their judgments are not about you. They are about them. They are a reflection of their own expectations, their own limitations, and their own unmet needs. Understanding this is liberating because once you see that judgment is inevitable, you stop chasing the impossible goal of universal approval. You stop bending, twisting, and contorting yourself to fit a mold designed by someone else's perception. You begin to realize that seeking approval is a trap, a never-ending cycle where the more you give, the less satisfaction you receive, and the more exhausted and frustrated you become. Judgment is not something you can control, and trying to control it only drains your energy. You can try to explain, defend, justify, or clarify your choices, and yet people will still judge. They will still have opinions. They will still question your motives. They will still cast doubt, not because you are wrong, but because their perspective is different, because their fears are projected onto you, because their ego needs to feel superior. Understanding this principle is the key to unlocking freedom. You begin to see that your focus should not be on convincing others, but on protecting your peace. Your focus should not be on molding perceptions, but on aligning with your purpose. Your energy should not be spent on altering the thoughts of others, but on enhancing your own life, your own growth, and your own power. When you accept that judgment is inevitable, you begin to live differently. You start making choices without the constant need to anticipate criticism. You stop rehearsing explanations in your mind before you act. You stop doubting yourself because of imagined reactions. You stop fearing rejection or disapproval as if they are indicators of your value. Because here is the undeniable truth: the opinions of others do not define you. They do not dictate your worth. They do not measure your success, your intelligence, or your integrity. Your value is inherent, rooted in your actions, your principles, and your alignment with your own life. Judgment is merely noise, a background hum that does not need to interfere with your decision-making, your creativity, or your self-respect. The people who matter, the ones whose opinion carries weight, whose feedback is valuable, will respect your decisions without requiring explanation. They will recognize your integrity, your boundaries, and your dedication to your values. They will see your results, not the justifications. And those who do not matter, the critics, the naysayers, the perpetual doubters, cannot be convinced. They cannot be satisfied. No matter how much explanation you offer, no matter how much clarity you provide, they will still find reasons to judge. Attempting to placate them is not only futile, it is destructive. It shifts your focus from creation to defense, from growth to appeasement, from confidence to doubt. It diminishes the energy you could be investing in your life and redirects it into the black hole of other people's perceptions. Living in this awareness is transformative. It is the moment you begin to detach your self-worth from external validation. It is the moment you stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and over-analyzing your decisions. It is the moment you start protecting your energy with as much vigor as you pursue your goals. You learn to prioritize your peace above the approval of others, to prioritize clarity over perception, to prioritize action over explanation. You start operating from a place of strength, not insecurity. You start acting from purpose, not fear. You start living a life guided by your own principles rather than by the expectations, judgments, or criticisms of others. The ironic truth is that people respect confidence far more than explanation. They respect decisiveness far more than rationalization. They respect authenticity far more than justification. When you stop trying to make everyone understand you, you are no longer weak, you are unapologetically strong. When you stop fearing judgment, you are no longer vulnerable, you are empowered. When you stop seeking approval, you are no longer dependent, you are free. People will always judge, but you no longer need to respond, defend, or explain. You simply live, act, and embody your truth, and your life becomes a statement far louder and more impactful than any explanation could ever be. Ultimately, understanding that people will judge no matter what allows you to redirect your focus to what truly matters. Your time is finite, your energy is precious, and your life is yours to design. Instead of wasting it on justification, criticism management, or the impossible task of universal approval, you invest it in personal growth, meaningful relationships, purposeful work, and self-mastery. Judgment becomes irrelevant because it no longer controls you. It no longer dictates your choices. It no longer diminishes your sense of self. You begin to exist fully, freely, and powerfully, without the chains of other people's opinions, without the burden of unnecessary explanation, and without the fear of being misunderstood. Once you internalize this principle, you realize that explanations and justifications are only necessary when accountability is required, when responsibility is due, and when growth is at stake. Outside of these contexts, explanations are often wasted energy. They are concessions of power. They are admissions of doubt. They are opportunities to be drained, distracted, and diminished. Accepting that people will judge you no matter what releases you from this cycle. You begin to act boldly, speak deliberately, and live unapologetically. You begin to reclaim your authority, your confidence, and your peace of mind. You begin to live a life defined by your choices, guided by your values, and free from the endless, futile need for approval. Explanations dilute your power, silence amplifies it. This is a truth most people never fully grasp because we have been conditioned to believe that we must constantly defend, justify, or clarify our every action. From childhood, we are trained to respond, to reason, to give an account of ourselves to authority, peers, and society at large. And while this may serve a certain purpose in structured environments like school or work, it becomes a trap in the realm of personal growth, self-mastery, and authentic living. Every time you speak to explain, you reveal more than necessary. Every time you justify, you concede a piece of your authority. Every time you rationalize, you invite scrutiny. Power is not given by words, nor is respect earned through endless clarification. Power is inherent, rooted in presence, decisiveness, and self-possession. Silence is the amplifier of this power because it communicates confidence, control, and integrity without a single word. Think about it. When you over-explain yourself, you are doing several things simultaneously. You are indicating that your choice is questionable, that it is open to debate, that it is subject to external validation. You are implicitly suggesting that your judgment is not sufficient on its own. Others pick up on this instinctively. They sense the insecurity, the doubt, the need for validation, and suddenly your position loses weight. Your authority diminishes because it is now entangled in the opinions and reactions of others. Contrast this with silence. When you do not feel compelled to explain, when you trust your own judgment enough to act without defending it, you project strength. You project clarity. You project unshakable confidence. Silence communicates that your life, your decisions, and your values are not negotiable. They simply are. And this is far more impactful than any verbal justification could ever be. Silence also preserves your energy. Every explanation requires cognitive effort, emotional labor, and a form of vulnerability. You must anticipate objections, frame your reasoning, modulate your tone, and manage reactions. This mental load, repeated endlessly, drains focus and power from what truly matters: action, creation, and self-development. The more you explain, the more you scatter your energy. The more you justify, the less forceful your presence becomes. Silence, on the other hand, allows you to consolidate your energy, to direct it with precision toward meaningful outcomes, and to protect your mental and emotional space from unnecessary invasion. By withholding explanations that are not required, you maintain control over your life, your attention, and your authority. Moreover, silence amplifies mystery and respect. People instinctively notice those who do not rush to clarify themselves. There is a magnetic quality to individuals who act decisively and let their actions speak. When you over-explain, you give away the story behind your choices. When you stay silent, you retain control over the narrative. You leave others with the impression of competence, assurance, and self-possession. In psychology, this is often referred to as the power of ambiguity. Those who are mysterious, who do not feel the need to over-justify, naturally command more respect because they are not consumed by the opinions of others. They are guided by principles, purpose, and self-trust. Silence also strengthens your relationships with others in unexpected ways. Over-explaining often comes from a place of fear of being misunderstood, fear of conflict, fear of judgment. But when you choose silence, you model confidence and emotional maturity. You demonstrate that you are grounded in your choices, that your values are non-negotiable, and that your energy is not to be spent defending yourself unnecessarily. Others sense this and often respond with greater respect, admiration, and trust. Ironically, by saying less, you are actually communicating more. You are conveying authenticity, authority, and self-reliance, all qualities that explanations can never fully capture. Another crucial point is that explanations often backfire because they invite interpretation, debate, and criticism. The more you clarify, the more angles you open for analysis. Every detail you offer can be dissected, questioned, or misinterpreted. By contrast, silence is unassailable. Silence cannot be refuted. It cannot be debated. It cannot be overanalyzed. When you act with integrity and do not feel the need to explain, you place yourself beyond trivial critique. Your life becomes a living testament to your choices, values, and principles, and that testimony is far more compelling than any verbal defense. Furthermore, silence nurtures internal clarity. When you are not preoccupied with convincing others, you are free to reflect, strategize, and focus on what truly matters. You begin to internalize accountability rather than external validation. You begin to measure your success not by how well others understand or approve of your actions, but by how aligned your actions are with your goals and principles. Silence gives you the mental and emotional space to act from authenticity rather than obligation, cultivates a mindset of self-trust, discipline, and inner strength that cannot be acquired through explanation or justification. Think of the great leaders, thinkers, and creators throughout history. Many of them did not spend their time over explaining themselves. They acted, decided, and moved forward, allowing their results, presence, and integrity to speak on their behalf. Silence was their ally. It allowed them to maintain authority, protect their energy, and command respect without ever pleading for understanding. They understood that their life is not a court of public opinion, and that every unnecessary explanation is a surrender of power, a depletion of focus, and a dilution of influence. In personal interactions, silence is particularly potent because it sets boundaries. When you refuse to explain unnecessarily, you establish clear limits on what you will discuss and defend. You communicate that your energy is reserved for priorities that matter, for conversations that are productive, and for relationships that are mutually respectful. Silence protects you from manipulation, criticism, and control. It signals that you are autonomous, self-reliant, and emotionally grounded. Those who attempt to challenge or provoke you quickly realize that you are not easily swayed, that your energy is not easily drained, and that your life is not up for debate. Ultimately, the lesson is simple: explanations dilute, silence amplifies. Every time you resist the urge to justify your choices, every time you choose presence over argument, action over defense, you reclaim power that has been wasted on validation and approval. You project authority, confidence, and authenticity in a way that no amount of reasoning ever could. You conserve your energy, protect your mental and emotional space, and cultivate a magnetic presence that commands respect effortlessly. Silence is not absence, it is strength. It is not weakness, it is mastery. It is not avoidance, it is strategic power. And the more you embrace it, the more you realize that the act of living unapologetically, decisively, and authentically is the most powerful explanation you could ever offer. Your energy is priceless. Give it to creation, not justification. This is a principle that too few people truly understand, yet it is the cornerstone of a life lived with purpose, power, and freedom. Every moment spent defending yourself, rationalizing your choices, or explaining your actions is a moment stolen from something far more valuable: the pursuit of your goals, the cultivation of your talents, the creation of your vision, and the building of a life that aligns with your deepest values. Energy is finite, yet we treat it as though it is limitless. We expend it on arguments that will never be won, on opinions that cannot be changed, and on judgments that will always exist. Every time you divert your energy toward justification, you are essentially surrendering it to others, trading your vitality for temporary peace of mind, and diluting the impact you could have in your own life. Consider this: people who demand explanations are often not seeking clarity. They are seeking control. They want to influence your decisions, question your authority, and subtly manipulate your thoughts. When you engage in endless justification, you give them exactly what they want: your attention, your focus, and your energy. And energy, once spent, cannot be recovered. It is the currency of your life, and yet we often squander it defending ourselves against forces that do not serve our growth or our mission. The truly powerful understand that energy is sacred. They understand that time and focus are far too valuable to be dissipated on convincing others of their worth, their choices, or their intentions. They act decisively, make their moves, and leave the judgments of others behind, reserving their energy for creation, action, and progress. Think about the mental load involved in constant explanation. Every time you prepare to justify yourself, you run scenarios in your mind, anticipate objections, and construct arguments. This is not harmless. It consumes attention, focus, and clarity. It is invisible labor, yet it drains your cognitive and emotional resources. You begin to feel tired, anxious, and constrained, not because your life requires justification, but because you have voluntarily surrendered your energy to the task of pleasing or convincing others. The irony is that all of this effort rarely produces the desired outcome. People may nod, they may pretend to understand, but their perception, judgment, or opinion is rarely changed by your explanation. Meanwhile, the energy you could have used to pursue your goals, expand your abilities, or create meaningful impact has been wasted. By choosing to reserve your energy for creation rather than justification, you reclaim control over your life. You begin to operate from a place of strength rather than defense. You focus on what matters: your vision, your purpose, and the actions that move you closer to your goals. You redirect the mental, emotional, and spiritual energy previously spent on explanation into productivity, innovation, and self-mastery. The results are immediate. You feel lighter, more focused, and more empowered. You no longer allow the judgments, doubts, or opinions of others to dictate how you think, act, or feel. Your energy becomes a force for building, not bending; for achieving, not appeasing; for creating, not justifying. Energy is also contagious. When you invest it in creation, You inspire those around you. People are drawn to action, focus, and results far more than they are drawn to lengthy explanations or defenses. When you demonstrate what is possible through dedication and discipline rather than words, you become a magnet for respect, influence, and opportunity. By contrast, when you scatter your energy on justification, you transmit uncertainty, doubt, and insecurity. Others sense it instinctively, and even when you appear rational, your over-explanation communicates weakness, hesitation, and lack of confidence. Energy spent wisely is not only productive for you, it also elevates your presence, authority, and the impact you have on the world around you. Moreover, when you protect your energy, you establish boundaries that reinforce your autonomy. By refusing to justify every decision, you communicate a powerful truth. Your time, focus, and attention are yours, and you will not allow them to be consumed by demands that serve no meaningful purpose. Boundaries are not just protective, they are empowering. They signal to the world that you are deliberate, intentional, and focused on priorities that matter. The more consistently you practice this, the more others respect your space, your choices, and your authority. You are no longer a participant in endless debates over your life. You are the architect, the creator, and the executor. Energy directed toward creation yields compounding returns. Every action taken in alignment with your purpose multiplies your capabilities, expands your influence, and strengthens your confidence. Energy spent on justification yields nothing but temporary relief, fleeting acknowledgement, or momentary avoidance of conflict. By shifting your focus, you unlock a level of productivity, clarity, and personal power that cannot be attained while over-explaining. You begin to see that life is not about persuading others, but about building something that speaks for itself. Your projects, your accomplishments, and your presence become the ultimate form of communication, far more effective than words ever could be. Finally, giving your energy to creation rather than justification transforms your relationship with yourself. You cultivate self-trust, self-respect, and internal validation. You learn to measure your success by progress, alignment with your values, and the pursuit of meaningful goals, not by the approval or understanding of others. You stop surrendering your vitality to criticism, judgment, or skepticism. You stop reacting to the noise of the world and start responding to the call of your own vision. You begin to live intentionally with focus, courage, and clarity. In this way, the decision to stop explaining yourself is not just a strategy, it is a profound declaration that your life, your energy, and your purpose are too valuable to be spent defending, justifying, or rationalizing, and that from this moment forward, every ounce of your energy will be reserved for creation, action, and the relentless pursuit of your highest potential.